Hey my friend, Dan Beer here with Agent Academy, and we're demystifying the ISA. It's something that absolutely drives me bananas because people use ISA ever since, that term, that acronym, ever since it became so popular a few years back in our industry. But people use ISA very, like people are having conversations and they're not each saying the same thing. Okay, so what I want to do, this is very much a clarity video, because I want to just make sure we get on the same page with how different, and when I say ISA, how different that might be for you or for the next person, and maybe we can agree on some common ground. The only thing that I see people agreeing on is that ISA stands for Inside Sales Agent. That's about it. There we can all agree, but from that point forward, there's a lot of confusion. And specifically around the function of the ISA. People, you see on these Facebook boards or just different forums where people are saying, hey, have you hired an ISA, or what's your ISA comp, or how many ISAs do you have? And that's fine. I love that people are looking for information, but what they're not talking about is what in the heck they actually mean. What kind of inside sales agent? Okay, there's a few different types. First of all, there's a first response agent. Okay, so you might have an ISA whose job is to receive inbound leads and be the first responder. That's number one. Number two is you might have an ISA whose job it is to nurture pipeline. Okay, so very different job from being the first responder. First responder, it's all about speed to lead. Nurture ISA, that's going to be about massive organization and productivity over the course of the day, building rapport over the long term, and those two folks might be different personality types. And of course you have inbound, leads that come into your business that you then respond to and nurture, or there's outbound. Outbound, those are what what so many of us think of as calling expireds or circle prospecting or calling notice of defaults, probates, anything where you're calling out, interrupting people's day and trying to generate new pipeline for your business. That would be an outbound ISA, at least in realtor speak. I prefer to call them SDR. Okay, to me that's an SDR, sales development rep. And the reason why is because what I find is that in the real estate industry, we like to reinvent a lot of what already exists in business. See, businesses across the country, take any software business as an example, like a Salesforce, and what you have is this entire world that our industry is trying to figure out and reinvent, it already exists. And that outbound role is referred to as a sales development role, SDRs. Okay, so they're prospecting out to add new pipeline to the business, which needs to be nurtured and then eventually moved over to what they would call an account executive, who then closes the deal. So let's take a look at what that might look like. There's two different tracks: inbound track, outbound track. So starting out here with inbound, this is what it might look like. New lead comes in, okay, so that's from one of your marketing channels. It might have been a phone call in on anything from postcards to a sign call to radio to newspapers to anything that's driving a phone call into your business. New lead comes in, maybe even an internet lead comes in, it's an inquiry, and someone has to have first response. Now you may or may not have a first response ISA, but nevertheless, somebody is acting as the first response team. Okay? On my team, what we do is actually, that's the one piece of this entire puzzle that we outsource because we need people just doing that, responding immediately. Lead comes in, boom, call goes out. Lead comes in, call, text, email, everything. On the spot. Speed is the number one thing. Okay? You could have the most talented people. If they're slow, your conversion rate is just in the dumps. Okay? So new lead comes in, first response goes out, and then, I'll probably end up off the board here, but it doesn't matter, nurture happens. So new lead comes in, there's a first response, but after that first response, whether contacted or not, they eventually have to be nurtured. Most, as we know, especially buyer leads, most of them are 6 months out, a year out, and so there has to be a phenomenal lead management policy, which of course we teach here. There has to be a phenomenal first lead management policy to nurture all those leads to the point where an appointment is set and they go to a sales executive. Now again, sales executive is non-realtor speak. Sales executive is what most any other industry would talk or would refer to that as. We would refer to that as agents, okay? So real estate agents, they're sales executives, account executives. They're people that are making money by closing business. And so in my particular organization, that's divided into two camps, which is buyer specialists and listing specialists. Nevertheless, those appointments go to one of those two sales execs or account execs who then close business, okay? And that's the lifeline of the lead, of that new lead that came in. Now on the outbound track, it's a little bit different. Outbound, you have what I'm calling again these SDRs, sales development reps. So we have a committed full-time sales development rep, and what they're doing is calling out, okay? Calling out, generating brand new pipeline that's not coming from our marketing department, but rather is coming from the telephone. And so they too will generate a new lead. And that new lead, there's no first response because that lead was generated right there, okay? There's already been a response. We've already talked on the phone. And by the way, we'll go into this further on other videos, so make sure you look for it. But that new lead for your outbound, if you're actually going to build out an SDR team or an outbound team, you need to make sure that you have very strict qualifications as far as or specifications as far as what qualifies a new lead as a new lead, and that you don't end up with a database full of junk. But assuming it's a qualified lead, they go to nurture, and they're nurtured, whether it be over the course of week, 2 weeks, it might have been just it might be someone saying, hey, I'd like to list right now. That's going to be uncommon. Typically, you're finding business that's doing something in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, or even a year out, depending on what your guidelines are that you decide on. So that has to be nurtured. And then, of course, the appointment's set for the account exec or the sales exec, which closes business. Now, here's where there's a major point of misunderstanding in all the conversations I have with agents across the country. And I'm in some of the highest level mastermind groups that you could ever find in our industry. And this is a very consistent just misuse, okay? Or misunderstanding is actually better. So on the inbound track, the person that does the nurture can also be the person that does first response. It's actually the way I've traditionally had it set up until we've now moved first response out because there's too much first response needed. So we can't handle this person can't handle all the first response because then their nurture starts to slack. Okay? And we could have just simply kept adding more nurture ISAs, but we chose to go that route. Nevertheless, if you have one ISA, they can be the same person. Okay? Nurture and first response in the inbound track. But outbound, when you're talking about someone waking up every day, getting on the phone and hitting the phones, that's a tough job, right? I mean, that's rejection. You need someone that's very aggressive. Hard charging, aggressive, can connect and build authority immediately. That person may not always be, and typically won't, frankly, that's not going to always be the person that can also do a phenomenal job of nurturing. So in the outbound track, this person and this person, two very different people. Two very different people. Okay? Very high D, very aggressive, hard charger. Over here, you have someone that's really into building relationships. Somebody that really understands that they are the voice of the company with your pipeline over the course of many, many months and years with some of those folks, and that is excited about the conversation they had today that may close 7 months from now. Okay? The hard charger, they're wired differently. Okay, so that is also really why it's important that we understand how to break this out, and that's how the major companies, any software business you're aware of, I mean, major companies, that's how they build it out. First response, it happens immediately. Someone that nurtures the relationship, moves it to an account exec, closes business. That is how not just simple it is to just say, hey, how many ISAs do you have? The only thing we can agree on is that it means inside sales agent. Outside of that, make sure that you're having clarity with those folks that you're talking to when you're on different forums, on Facebook and different chat groups. When you're getting advice from somebody on what to do with your ISAs, make sure you understand what kind of ISA. What are they talking about? Because it's very easy for there to be misunderstanding, and all of a sudden you're off on the wrong road. So that's a very quick demystifying of the ISA world. I'm Dan Beer. This is Agent Academy. We'll be right back with you again. Look out for the next video.